Hey guys, it's Tim Shermack, and welcome back to another episode of the Platform Marketing Show. I'm joined today by my good friend, Brandon Hedlund, coming at you from the Brainerd Lakes area up in, well, not really central Minnesota, but northern Minnesota, right? Up.
We're northern. Yeah, I'd consider us northern Minnesota. It's weird to consider yourself living in northern Minnesota because everyone else is like, oh no, this is just home. But yeah, we're up
Yeah,
there.
I mean,
We're 3 hours from the Canadian
yeah,
border.
when you're in the Brainerd Lakes area, my family used to vacation there a lot when I lived in Minnesota. I know that people there don't necessarily think of it as northern Minnesota because, well, there's towns that are way farther north, than us. But to the rest of Minnesota, you guys are northern Minnesota. So
Yeah, yeah,
Brandon's is
100%.
in a small town, obviously, in kind of northern Minnesota there. Are you born and raised in that area?
Born and raised. I'm one of the lucky ones. I get to live where people vacation.
Exactly. So you know the area inside and out. Honestly, even before you joined the platform marketing program, you had pretty good marketing yourself. Like I was following you on social media. That's how we initially got connected, as we were Facebook friends, I think, for several years before you ever signed up
Mm-hmm.
for platform. I tried to get you to sign up. I think you actually went to lunch with Andrew, I think, at some point.
Yeah, yeah. I got both of the Andrews up
Okay. Yeah.
from
And
came
we're
up
like,
and visited.
yeah, and we're like, Brandon would be perfect for platform. We've got to get him to sign up for platform, but the timing wasn't right. You had other things going on. And
Yep.
really, which kind of leads us into what we'll talk about in this podcast episode, is you were convinced at the time that I can do all this marketing stuff myself. I don't really need to hire a marketing company like Platform, which is true. And I think that's the paradox of so much
Yep.
business growth when it comes to small businesses is that is true. And it's why that belief is so alluring. But it's also why if you have that belief, it holds you back from growth because you are correct in that, yeah, you could have kept doing all the marketing yourself, but the time it takes to do that marketing is now time you can't spend actually working with clients and getting paid.
1,000%.
That's going to be the story of what we talk about in this episode today with Brandon Hedlund is what happens when you act, and I know it's a cliche, I know it's a stereotype, but what happens when you actually step back and get to work on the business versus in the business. So Brandon, you signed up for
I'm the
platform.
poster boy for hamster wheel right there, getting stuck working in the business. So if you have that feeling, give me a shout. I'm happy to talk more.
Again, you were already successful. So I want to
Yep.
preface all this by this isn't one of those, rags to riches stories of a struggling realtor who is barely paying the bills and they sign up for platform marketing and all of a sudden, they have wildest riches beyond their dreams or something. Like Brandon was already pretty successful and he was already one of the most well-known, most respected agents in his area before platform. But the problem was your business was kind of plateauing because you were simply running out of hours in the day to do what you needed to do.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that's a great way to put it. Looking at it, I had the ability to do this stuff for a season, for a period, right? Life comes in seasons. And my life changed dramatically the moment I had kids about 5 years ago. So I was on this rocket ship journey about 7.5 years ago when I got into the industry of like, okay, we're crushing it. We're crushing it. Now what? Oh wow, now there's all these obligations that are coming up. Now there's all these things. I cannot juggle all of these plates.
Yeah, it's like
For a little bit.
I've gone through this myself in, the last year and a half. I think Rosie's actually, as of this recording, Rosie's about to turn 20 months. It's crazy how fast all that happens. But I remember, it wasn't that long ago, I could work 12 hours or 14 hours a day if I had
Mhm.
to get done whatever I had to get done. And my wife really wouldn't care if I worked 12 hours because, like, hey, we have the time. If we can make some extra money by just hustling and grinding, like it is what it is. But when you have
Yep.
kids, it's not only inconvenient to do that, it's just not an option at all. As a husband, you can't be working 14 hours a day, or if you're the wife and you have kids, you can't be working 14 hours a day. It forces you to become more efficient. So I
Yeah.
don't know where I read this, Brandon, but this stuck with me. So I'm sorry I can't attribute it to the proper source. But in some book or some podcast, I read that someone said having kids was actually the most powerful time management hack that I ever implemented. Because unlike all the books about time management or how to become a better planner or get through your to-do list, whatever, having kids just forces you to realize what is the fluff in my day I'm spending time doing that's not actually moving me forward. And then you just ruthlessly have to eliminate that stuff to focus on what actually works. So for you,
Yeah.
you joined Platform in 2022. How did Platform factor into all this of kind of freeing up your time so that your business could grow to that next level?
Yeah. Well, kind of stepping back here one
Sure.
second, you're from Minnesota. You're a Minnesota boy. Did you have like grandma's house with the old gas stove, like where you tried to turn on all the burners to super high and you couldn't get them all to like be on full blast? You know what I'm talking
Sure.
about?
Sure.
Okay, so there's this book, Family First Entrepreneur. It talks about this conundrum that we get into, and it talks about it in the various seasons of life. At any given point, you have four main burners. You got family, friends, health, and then family, friends, work, and health. Okay, so at any given point, usually you can have about two of those burners on at full blast. But here's the problem: kids enter. You can no longer have the burners on that you want to at full blast. So you have to figure out, it's this constant adjusting of the burners, trying to get the maximum output out of every single burner. And I think what it came down to, going back to your question, is like, I can't do the things that I used to be able to do with that burner in
Sure.
marketing. I
Sure.
could do it for a while and for a season, but for an extended period of time, it's just not possible. And so allowing myself to step back and look at it prospectively, like, okay, where am I in the best role? The right person, right seat. Business owners talk about that all the time. Entrepreneurial operating system. Well, for me and for almost any real estate agent out there, it's talking to people. It's not coming up with the marketing ideas. It's not sitting back and taking the time to write ad copy that is well done, that gets people's attention, to make ads that don't look like ads, that get people's attention long term. It's just not that seat. So about 2 years ago, I realized this. And I'm like, I've been a big dummy. Pride got in the way, youth, arrogance, whatever you want to call it. And it kicked in. And I realized like Platform is my separator. That takes me from having to have my marketing burner on full blast, step back and just work the leads themselves. So I hope that kind of answers your question.
Yeah.
It's the best way that I can explain it. It's the vision.
Yeah, I know in a restaurant, there's kind of this old expression or saying amongst restaurant owners that when you think about your business model as a food service business, there's like three variables that you can compete on. Like you can be fast, good, or cheap, but the expression is pick two. Because if you open a restaurant, it can't be fast, good, and cheap. It can be fast and cheap, like McDonald's, but it can't be good then if you're going to make it fast and
Yep.
sell it cheap. And so it's always a trade-off, right? In business and life, there are trade-offs. And the sooner you realize that, I think it actually is very freeing to realize, oh, I can't do it all. And so if I'm wasting my time or I'm getting stressed trying to be a perfect dad, a perfect husband, a perfect real estate agent, a perfect marketer, have, six-pack abs or whatever, it's like, well, you're not going to be able to do all those things at the same time, right? You can have everything you want, you just can't have it all at once, right? So
Yes. Yeah.
realizing that once you get to a successful enough point in your real estate career, the cool thing is you can buy your way out of some of these problems with actually pre-tax dollars. This is what I tell people so often is like, before you go out and like hire a full-time nanny for your kids or a house cleaner or a maid, or you're spending all this money in your personal life trying to free up hours of hiring, a chef to cook your meals or people to clean your house or mow your lawn or whatever. Spend as much money as possible to free up your time in your business as business expenses, because you can write those things off, right? If a business expense like hiring Platform, obviously, or any of the other services that you can hire, like hiring a transaction coordinator, all the things you can do to save hours in the week, you can write those off. That's obviously tax deductible from the business income. So do all that before you ever think about hiring a full-time nanny or someone to cook your meals or clean your house or mow your lawn, because you can't write that off your taxes. So let's just conservatively say that, I don't know, how many hours a week do you think Platform saves you from not having to think about the marketing ideas? 5 hours a week, 3 hours a week? What do you think it is?
I personally find it closer to 20 because I was already a successful agent. I knew the amount of time that it was taking me to do all these things and come up with the ideas and put the plans in place for them to go live. It's easily 20 hours. Honestly, I was working two full-time jobs. I was doing marketing and I was being a real estate agent and a transaction coordinator and all the other things.
For those listening that are like, there's no way that's true, he must be exaggerating. What you get with Platform isn't just Facebook ads management or whatever. We edit all of your videos for you. So if you send us 5 listing videos or 10 listing videos in a month, we edit all those videos for you. We obviously write the ad. So it's a lot more than just launching a Facebook post here and there. So 20 hours sounds like a lot. I was going to say more like maybe 5 hours or even 10 hours, but
Yeah,
you really
no,
think it's 20.
it's easily. I 100% believe it's around 20 hours a week that I'm truly no longer spending. And I know that because I talk to my wife and I talk to my kids. And I talked to my wife yesterday at 5 o'clock when I get home on a Monday after being gone for 5 days essentially. I mean, what the heck was 4th of July on a Thursday for? Can we like shift that? Because that whole week was whack. Wednesday, we have the Nisswa parade.
Yep.
40,000 people rain down on our town. And it's 4th of July. Then it's Friday. Who works Friday, the day after, So I was gone for almost 5 days in my business. And I still got to go home at 5 o'clock on a Monday after I put out sold signs. I signed 2 new listings. Like that's the kind of time savings that I have because I can focus on the stuff that I'm best at.
Right.
And it is
Right.
not doing marketing. And it was easily 20 hours a week between all the things that I was doing.
Now, to be fair, again, for those listening who are skeptical of really, is it actually saving Brandon 20 hours a week? You were probably in the top 1 percentile of agents who took their marketing very, very seriously, even before you signed up for Platform. So when I was,
Yeah.
I was following your page on Facebook, because we're from kind of a similar area in Minnesota. We were Facebook friends for years before you ever actually joined Platform. It's like your videos were epic. You were filming lifestyle videos, listing videos. Like you were really thinking of yourself as like a content marketer for the community who just happened to be a real estate agent. So you were doing content marketing at an extremely high level, maybe not even top 1%, maybe the top 1% of 1% of agents. So like that just kind of sets the stage for your business was already there. You were doing an epic job. And therefore, because you knew you were really good at it, you didn't really want to sign up for Platform because you're like, well, I can do this, on my own. So this year, we're recording this here in 2024. I'm not sure when someone's going to be listening to this episode. Maybe they're listening to it years in the future, but we're recording this
Yeah.
episode in summer of 2024. And just to kind of give context again, if you're not listening to it right now, the real estate market has sucked in 2023 and still in 2024. Rates are high. People are not wanting to buy and sell if they don't absolutely have to move. It's just a weird vibe, you know.
Yeah.
You're in a market where yes, there are people who live there year round, but there's a lot of vacation homes, second homes, like the $1 million homes on the lakes there. So the market has kind of just been weird. So we could
Yep.
we could definitely say that it's been like swimming upstream or like running uphill. Like the market is more hurting us than it is helping us right now.
Yep.
All that being said, what are you projecting you'll finish this year at, Brandon, in terms of like sales volume or GCI, however you track
Yeah.
that?
Yeah. I talked with my account manager a little bit about this earlier today. I just reran the projections and I keep good track of it, but I never look at it because it matters, but it doesn't matter right now with where I'm at in my stage of the group development. It's going to be around $400,000 GCI. That's insane compared to, I briefly shared with you. We didn't get a chance to even talk about this before the show here today. Last year was almost 200. Last year was a down year, and I shared some of the reasonings why. I stepped back from what I was doing, which was more active real estate last year with a brokerage, and I stepped into growing my own brokerage, and I laid the foundational path from about June to the end of the year last year. So I took about 6 months of my business where I wasn't actively working in it as much, so that I could lay the foundational steps so that this year would be the rocket year.
Yeah.
And I'm going to do $150,000 GCI more than 2022, which was a bonkers year for most people. So pretty excited about the direction and the things that have happened for this year.
And also, let's add that in the midst of all that, you acquired a local small business and ran that for a couple years and then just sold that here in the
Yeah.
last year. So throughout that whole time, you were also like managing and kind of rebuilding, and ultimately flipping and selling a local small business that you just saw an opportunity for. So
Yeah.
it would be fair to say that before platform, your GCI was 200 to 250, depending on the year. That's probably accurate.
Pretty consistently.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
And now this year, you're on pace to do 400,000, potentially more. But the most important thing isn't, I mean, by the way, that's phenomenal. Growing from
Yeah.
250 to 400 is life-changing money, because for those counting at home,
That's a big plateau to break through.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's like over $12,000 a month increase. And the cool thing about when you get 250, I've said this on several platform podcast episodes, when you get to like 200, for sure 250,000 in almost any American town, maybe not San Francisco or New York City, but basically any American town, all of your financial bases are covered. Like, you can pay your bills, pay your mortgage. You're not worried about buying groceries. You're not worried when you go out to eat about what the prices are on the menu. You can definitely take a nice family vacation every year. You can set money aside for long-term saving, investment, retirement. Like, once you get to 200, 250, you're definitely like upper middle class and you're financially comfortable, right?
Yeah. Which is weird. It's a weird spot to be.
Yeah, but
Sorry to
the
interrupt. Like imposter syndrome.
the
Yeah.
cool thing though is that any growth you experience above and beyond 200, 250,000 in GCI, because all of your fixed expenses are already taken care of, that basically becomes disposable income that you can just save and invest all of it. Or, I mean, if you want to, I suppose you could spend all of it and just massively increase your lifestyle. But up until that point, you can't really just, hey, we made an extra, $10,000 or $20,000 this month unexpectedly. Let's put it all into long-term like retirement savings. Like, you can't do that until you get to that point, because the money coming in is needed to actually fund
Yeah.
your lifestyle, pay your mortgage, pay your student loans, credit cards, your car payment, whatever. So that's really the magical point, I think, in small business ownership, when you get beyond about 250,000 GCI, because then you can actually really start rolling the snowball of like generational wealth building. Like, you actually are really
100%.
increasing your family's net worth. So that's really cool. So
Yeah.
Brandon, congratulations. That's
Thank you.
incredible.
Thank you.
B, let's double click on this kind of work-life balance
Yeah.
topic here, because it's impressive as hell that you grew from 200, 250 to 400. But the most impressive thing about that is that not many realtors can say that their work-life balance and the amount of time they spend with their family actually increased when they went from 200 to 400,000 GCI. Because when we hear stories like that, it's really impressive in whatever podcast or whatever. Hey, a realtor doubled their business from 200 to 400 in GCI. They usually don't say the quiet part out loud, but usually it's because like they're really not being super present with their, with
100%.
their family. They're not home for dinner. They're not spending weekends or Sunday afternoons with their families, or Saturday afternoons. Like, they're not, they wouldn't want to admit this out loud because it's emotionally uncomfortable, but they have compromised part of their family obligations to make more money. Right. And that's not just realtors. That's any small business
That's
owner.
every
Right.
industry.
Yep.
Yep, 100%. Yeah, you're going to hear that from almost everyone. In order for me to hit that next level, I had to sacrifice something. And don't get me wrong, like I had those stages and I had those seasons, but usually it was where I was trying to figure it all out on my own. The realization, like I said, came about 2 years ago when I realized I can't do all the things. I can't be all the things to all the people. I only want to do real estate well. And when I realized that, it allowed me to focus my energy better, show up, do the things well, clock in, clock out. And truly, like, I feel sometimes like I can clock out in this industry, which I don't feel like many realtors can probably say. There is hope. So if you're feeling that way, there is hope. But you got to really look at your systems and where you're spending your time.
Again, I just want to repeat, growing from 200 to, on pace to do 400,000 GCI this year. And by the way, I think you'll hit 400,000 because interest rates are going to be lower in the next year, not higher, right? At the
Yeah.
time we're recording this episode, interest rates are still as high as they were at any point in the last year or two. The Fed has not cut rates or made any attempt to drop rates, and you're still on pace to do 400 this year. So if anything, right, as the market heats up, when the Fed eventually cuts rates, who knows when it's going to
Yeah.
be, but those numbers for you are only going to go higher, right, when the market gets better. So your
Yeah.
your
100%.
time with your family has actually increased over the last couple of years, not decreased. walk me
Yeah.
through
It's had to.
walk me through a typical, yeah, because I know you're a new father again in the last
Yeah.
year here. So you have three kids now. They're all under the age of 5. Is that right?
Yeah. 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 As of a month ago, yeah, we just had our first 5-year-old. So,
Okay.
yeah, we're right in the thick of it. Life is good
So
though.
they're
It's
they're
it's
they're
the biggest blessing.
they're 5 years old. What are the ages?
5, 3, and I have a 9-month old.
Yeah, so that is a handful. You have a 5-year
Yeah.
old, a 3-year old, and a 9-month old. Not exactly the ideal family work life setup to be doubling a business, right? When you have
Yeah.
all of that,
Yep.
going on. Brandon, walk me through what like a day in the life of Brandon Hedlund looked like before platform. So in like 2020, 2021, versus what does a typical day in the life of Brandon Hedlund look like now that you have all these platform marketing systems set up?
Yeah. Dark times, my friend. Those were dark times. I mean, COVID was raining down upon us. Daddy Powell was just about to let us know that the rates were going up. So there was a lot of tumultuous times. And 2022 really is when it started to get hairy. Uh, but I had already made that shift. I was prepared. I saw what was coming. And that was coincidentally why we bought the small business that we did here in the area, was because I knew that things were going to shift a little bit. And I craved like no other. Like I was so hungry for this time freedom that everybody kept talking about and saying like this mythical animal is out there. And then all of a sudden, all of those days of being at the office until literally 11 o'clock at night, I look back at some of my old stories. Facebook's good at reminding us of all of all of our mistakes and all of our things we wish we never would have posted. But that's a whole nother
By the way,
story.
that's
So
that's why that's like half the reason I still love using Facebook, even though
yeah,
I
yeah,
will I will totally admit, like, especially amongst young people, TikTok is like cooler right now, or Instagram is
mm-hmm.
cooler. I mean, all these new social media networks are like cooler. But the reason I love Facebook is that it acts as like a photo album scrapbook of all the memories
Yeah,
I've had over the last 10 plus years I've been using Facebook, and
100%.
that's what keeps me coming back. So okay, so
Yeah. So late nights or early mornings, it was all the things. It was being dragged through the market, realistically. I mean, like I was doing a lot of deals. And once again, there were still a lot of people like, how are you doing this? And honestly, I didn't know either because I was just working too hard at trying to be everything to everyone. And so it was late
let's
nights, late
let's
nights.
walk through, if you can, like a literal, hey, what time did you wake up in the morning? What time did you start
Yeah.
working? How long did you, like, what did a typical day look like when you didn't have platform? Because you were probably
Yeah.
editing some of your videos, you were filming all, coming up with ideas. Like, what did a day in the life of Brandon look like pre-platform versus what it looks like
Yep.
now?
Boy, I mean, I was realistically at the office a lot of times around 7 o'clock. And don't fact check me on that, but realistically, it was early mornings. I was usually there. And there's this thing that happens in your 20s, right? You're trying to find your identity, and I more than most, with a whole array of background and stuff pre real estate, I'm trying to figure out still to this day who I am, and I'm grateful for that journey. It was it was a lot of pride and a lot of arrogance of like I got to work hard and I got to do the things, and um, it was trying to be too much, and because of that, things were forced, and because of that, things didn't come and didn't fall into play the way that they should. So early mornings, I was having to fix and correct other people's mistakes, and just a lot of running around. I was writing scripts. I was meeting with business owners. I was doing all the things like we've talked about 20 hours additional a week now that I have free, because I'm not doing that. And it was late nights. It was a lot of showings. I don't work with buyers as much, obviously, anymore at this point as I do listings. But I've put the things in place to live my life that way and be okay with that. So it was getting dragged around. then you start to gain this little sense of confidence, right? And with that can come a false sense of security at the same time. So still in that tapering and going all in on every single deal, but realizing that I cannot possibly do all the things that I need to get every single transaction closed 100% perfectly. So removing myself and my pride is really where my day has shifted a lot over the past couple of years.
And do you have a TC now, or?
Yeah. Yeah. So now Navigate North Group launched in December of last year. And it's me, an admin, and we have a full time agent. So
Okay.
growing at the perfect pace. We're in a foundational stage where we're just getting everything we can done well at a very high level so that we can scale. We're in no rush to grow. I There are a lot of agents that feel like, oh, the market's ending, things are changing, times, as we record this, the whole NAR ruling is about to come into effect. There's still tumultuous times with that, but I believe that I'm going to be doing this for an incredibly long time, and so much so that my subconscious believes it. So much so that I'm going to go and spend $40,000 on just the apparel and the swag and the branding of my company, because this isn't all there is. I'll tell you, 2024 isn't all there is to the real estate market. There is more to come. There is more. There's more money to be made in this
Yep.
industry, but you have to be looking at it from a long-term perspective and not a minute like today.
Even just like from a macroeconomic perspective, right? Like if we know, all things being equal, that the federal government is not going to stop spending money and debt, right? They're not going to stop going into debt, right? And the Federal Reserve is not going to stop printing money to finance all this debt. There's going to be more inflation in the future, not less,
Yep.
right? And real estate is one of the very, very rare asset classes that you can't just print real estate at the same rate politicians can print money. So it naturally is scarce, which means it goes up in value disproportionately compared to other asset classes when there's inflation. I mean, even owning
Yeah.
stocks, right? Owning stocks is obviously a pretty good inflation hedge. Most financial advisors will tell you that owning shares of real companies that can raise their prices in response to inflation, or whatever, is a great inflation hedge. And that's true to an extent. But if there's a ton of inflation and the economy weakens, those companies can also make less profits, which makes those investments not as interesting as owning real estate, which if you own a Great Lake property in northern Minnesota and in a Brandon's market, and the politicians just print tons and tons of money, that property goes up in value just with inflation because they can't duplicate that property. They're not printing more lakes in Minnesota. There's a scarce amount of luxury lakefront, property. And so being a realtor in an economy like we're in, knowing the future that we're in for, like, I'm optimistic as hell. Like I think it's one of the coolest professions to be in because it's so perfectly positioned to absorb all of that inflation coming from the Federal Reserve and coming from the federal government that most other industries just can't absorb that inflation at all. So I totally respect your hustle. I respect how optimistic you are. I respect that you're investing in your brand. You're not pulling back in this tough economy. You're like, hey, let's spend even more money on local marketing and building the Navigate North group. I mean, if you guys see, I'm actually wearing right now a pullover that Brandon sent me from his new brand, Navigate North. I have a hat too, apparently on the way to my house. He has a really cool, yeah, he has a really cool logo, by the way, and the brand he's come up with is super cool. But he's doing all this in the midst of a down market. That's really the point we're getting at here, is that at the time we're recording this, the real estate market is not good, right? So I think any realtor or marketing company that works with realtors could have claimed a bunch of, let's just call it unearned success stories in 2020 or 2021 when the market was so hot that it was elevating a lot of
Yeah.
average agents into looking above average, right?
Yeah.
But it's,
The cliche, everyone's a genius
yes,
in a bull market.
yes,
Yep.
yes.
Yep.
But when the market, slows down and the tide goes out, right, and you see who is swimming naked, that's when you see, okay, what marketing strategies or what agents actually know what they're doing. Because if you've had success in 2023 or 2024, what that tells me is you actually have a strong foundational business. Like you weren't just successful because of the market, you were successful in spite of or despite the market. So your business is growing in the midst of a very difficult, tough market. What are some other marketing strategies that you've implemented, like above and beyond platform, Brandon, that you think have helped you build your brand in your area?
Yeah. Honestly, it is being deeply rooted and connected to my local friend group, to the local businesses, being that guy sitting at the same coffee shop consistently. Because once again, realizing that I don't want to be everything to everyone. I don't need to go to every coffee shop and try to kind of sort of know everybody. That's not me. I don't want to do business with everyone, and I'm okay turning away business now. And if you had told the Brandon from 7 years ago that was just getting into the industry that one day he'd be turning away business, I would have slapped you in the face, because that Brandon was a scarcity mindset Brandon. That Brandon was the poor Brandon that grew up with, terrible family, all the things, that didn't realize that there was more on the other side of abundance and life. And so living with this go giver type mentality, I'm going to give until it freaking hurts. I'm just going to keep giving. I'm going to find things to give. I'm going to find my time to give, but I'm going to love doing it in a way that like it roots me back to what I'm doing within my business, which ultimately is going to root me into the people that I want to be doing business with. Because if I live authentically, then the authentic people that I like, know, like, and enjoy are going to automatically come to me. It doesn't feel like work like it used to. Everything before was a grind because, once again, I was busting my butt. Now, I just have people that I naturally vibe with and love. And because I am selective in some of the ads that I do with my account manager, the people that I want to come to me just come. My phone just doesn't stop ringing. I got another call yesterday from somebody who wants me to go and look at some land that they want to list. It just doesn't stop. Um, and so I talk with my agent, that I'm training and bringing on board and taking under my wing, and I'm sharing some of these wins. And I remember being in that exact same seat, but never having anybody tell me you don't need to be everything to everyone. So I guess to go back to it, it is putting money into branding and gearing because people do want to feel connected to something other than just a realtor. Um, it's not making it all about me. It's making it about the community, the people that I work with, pulling myself from my subconscious language in all of the things that I do and all of the ads that I run because it's not about me. It's about what the group is doing. So taking self out of it is really, I'd say, what it comes down to. But yeah, it's just being rooted and deeply connected with some of the locals. So we put on, we've, we looked back and we've done so many different sponsorships of people that I love being around. Golf tournaments and fishing tournaments and trap shooting. Trap shooting is this thing, sporting clays in Minnesota, where Minnesotans go out and we love to shoot guns together. So we go out and we throw money down range, and it's hanging out with the people that I want to be around. So, not trying to be everything to everyone, not posturing myself and trying to pretend I'm something I'm not. Knowing my roots, but also knowing that I have some pretty cool success ahead of me yet to come. But then also going home at the end of the day and just being really happy with the crew and the family.
So
It's not hard.
what I'm hearing you say is that the life you live determines what marketing messages you put out there, because you're essentially using your platform marketing a platform, I guess, to put out content like photos and videos of what actually is important to you. So these aren't like canned copy and paste.
Curated.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like, hey, I'm putting out photos or videos of what I'm actually involved in the community, whether it's going out, um, you know, uh, how you're involved at your church, how you're involved at the local chamber of commerce events, how you're involved in the local small business community, hobbies you have, whether it's hunting, fishing, shooting. Um, that is what makes its way into your marketing. Where it's probably like 75% of your ads are just talking about those things and things in the community and your hobbies that are important to you, and then like 25% is actually about real estate and listing. So people are
Mm-hmm.
calling you because they want to work with you, whether it's to sell, sell a lake property or go buy a lake property, because of who you are, not because of, oh, he's a realtor and I looked up a bunch of realtors. It's like, no, no, no. I
Yep.
specifically want to work with Brandon. Right. So
Yep. Yep.
what that means in a very practical way to kind of tie this whole conversation back to marketing, after all, this is a marketing podcast, right? Um, when you get that set up correctly and you have that dialed in, like you have over the last couple of years, if people want to work with you because of who you are, not because you have really aggressive in your face, sales messages or direct mailers or billboards or Facebook ads or whatever, but they actually feel like magnetically attracted. You know what? I just like Brandon's vibe. I feel like I get him. I want to work with him. I don't want to work with just some random realtor. I want to work specifically with him, right? When your marketing accomplishes that, that's the difference between being able to say, hey, you know what? This weekend is for family. We're going to take the family out on the boat, or we're going to go to the lake house, or we're going to drive to the cities and see a Twins game, or we're going to go to a rodeo in South Dakota or whatever, and taking off 2 or 3 days, or as you mentioned, even over the 4th of July, you basically took 4 or 5 days off because, Independence Day was on Thursday. You took, that Wednesday off, that Friday off, probably the weekend too. Being able to take time off, and then when a seller or buyer contacts you and they're like, hey, I want to sell my house, or hey, I want to go look at a house, you can say, hey, actually, I'm spending this weekend with my family. Can we connect on Monday? That's the difference, that in that specific situation, what they're going to say is, oh, you know what? That's totally fine. I will wait till Monday because I want to work with you. Right. Whereas if you've built your business buying Zillow leads or other pay-per-click leads from wherever, those leads that come in, they're honestly just looking for someone to go open a door. It's like, hey, I want to go look at this property. Can you meet me there at 4 o'clock? They don't really care what realtor shows up. It's basically
Yeah.
Tinder for realtors, right? That's what Zillow is. They don't really care as long as someone can meet them there. What makes this style marketing so important is they actually want to work with you specifically. So that's what gives you the emotional leverage in that situation. Say, hey, you know what? This weekend's for my family. Can we connect Monday morning? And then in that moment, they're actually happy. They're like, you know what? Yeah, let's connect Monday morning. And they respect you even more for having
If
those
I jumped
boundaries.
at it the way that I do my marketing, if I jumped at that opportunity on a Saturday or a Sunday like I used to, they would find me an inauthentic version of the person that I put out online. And I think that is the big differentiator when you can actually rest in the things that you say you are. And it's not just a front or a facade or something that you put on, a good show. 100%. I just had another message. I texted back and it said, hey, sorry, it's been a busy couple of days. He said, oh, no, no worries. Glad you spent time with your family this weekend. I wasn't a rush for me. If I had tried that 2, 3, 4 years ago, they would have already been on to the next person. That's what happens. I mean, we are a fast society, but high hanging fruit allows them to be slow. It allows them to be in touch with me way before they're ever ready to actually do business, which is 100% how I want to run my business. This is a business. This isn't just, I'm going to make quick cash. I think you also need to start realizing that when you take it from commission check to, okay, that's money into the business account. Okay, now I need to go and spend on these things and these things. And you're planning, you're not just taking every single dollar out of your business, and you have the freedom to leave dollars in your business account. Another thing that poor, scarcity mindset Brandon would have never said could be a reality for him is that it's being able to rest in that fact and not have to care about every single dollar that's coming back. It's absolutely wild what happens when you start looking at your business with a different lens and the high hanging fruit mentality. I'm a prime example. I knew, and Tim's alluded to this, I knew about Tim and Platform the day that I got into the business back in 2017. It took me 5 years to ripen up and ready to fall. But by the time that I did, it was like, boom, let's go. When I had talked to them previously, I was looking at it again from a different lens. I was underneath of a brokerage, and I was like, oh, this is a good thing for my brokerage. I can't afford it. And then, and then one day I sat back and I realized I looked at my dollars and the things that I was doing with my money and the commission checks. I was like, this is never going to go anywhere if I keep living like this. I can spend those dollars and I can be the one, So why don't I? If I know the strategy works, but my broker didn't jump at it when he had the opportunity, which one realtor per market, by the way, um, insane. Don't even get me started on that. The amount of value there. But if I had jumped at it back then, I would have been even further ahead in 2022 and 2023 than I was. So it really is sometimes that high hanging fruit mentality of like, okay, the things that I'm doing don't always produce results today, but I don't need results today. As long as I have enough to cover my bare standard, have a little bit of margin, meat on the bone, then years like this for me will come for you 2024 when you're making $150,000 GCI more than you did the previous year. That's a lot more margin than I had been living with.
Right. Yeah.
Wild when you start shifting your perspective.
Yeah. All the all the most successful small business owners I know, whether they're realtors or any other small business, what they all have in common is they have set their lifestyle expenses in such a way, like the amount of money they spend on their car or their house or going out to eat, whatever, just their family's, monthly expenses. They live off of such an amount of money that they can afford to constantly reinvest in their business in things that might not pay off for 6 to 12 to 18 months, because not every dollar that comes in the business, they're not yanking every dollar out immediately and paying themselves, because there's a, you know, any small business owner, no matter how unsophisticated you are or how new you are or ignorant, frankly, anyone can see an opportunity where it's like, hey, if I spend $1,000 on this and I can get $10,000 out in a month, well, it's like everyone's going to do that. If there's only a month turnaround time on your investment, everyone will spend that money. What really separates small businesses that grow over the long term and thus create more profits for the owners, permanently over the long term, are where you're willing to spend 1,000 or 10,000 or whatever on something that, hey, this might not pay off for a year and it might not pay off for 2 years, but when it pays off, I might spend this 10,000, I might make 100,000, but in the meantime, I need to be willing to go without this $10,000 that I could have spent on my family, because I'm going to reinvest it back into the business. And your career arc and the kind of narrative of what's led you to navigate north and where your business is at now, that's your story. You've just reinvested in your business over these years when you could have been paying yourself more. You could have been yanking all the money out, but you reinvested that into marketing and growth, and now your business has doubled, and somehow you actually have more time with your
Yeah.
family, not less. So Brandon, I want to dive into some specifics here. What are some of your favorite, like, specific ads you've run, whether they're like retargeting ads, photo ads, whether they're videos? What would you say over the last couple of years are the most effective ads that you have run, judged by, hey, people in real life told me, oh, I loved that ad, or I loved that photo or video, where you were actually getting real life feedback on your social media?
Yeah. And I don't know if you remember this, but I remember this vividly. This is probably a testament more to your character and the foundation that you've put into platform. But I reached out to Tim because I saw an ad, a copy, if correct me if I'm wrong, that Tim wrote for So God Made a Small Business Owner. Before I was ever a platform client, I reached out to Tim and I said, man, we've talked. We have this, Facebook relationship. Would you allow me to utilize this even though I'm not a client of yours? And Tim, without even batting an eye, said yes. So I went and I are indeed rip off and duplicate. And I made the small, So God Made a Small Business Owner video here in my town before I was a platform client. It did well, and I cannot wait to remake it now that we're post COVID and I'm a platform client, because I knew enough about Facebook marketing. I think this is something we haven't touched base on, is like, I knew how to do Facebook marketing. Once again, I knew how to do the
Yep.
retargeting. I knew how to
Yep.
run ads, and that's why it was successful for me. But it wasn't successful at the level that I could be because I was spending so much time on it. So don't even get me started there. But So God Made a Small Business Owner had such a huge impact on my town, my credibility. It wasn't about real estate, but it put my name in the light. That was probably the number one ad that I can think of. But other specific ads, honestly, it's just doing continued creative intros. I tell people all the time, it just doesn't, like, marketing doesn't have to look good. It just has to get people's attention. And it kind of goes back to the adage, like, no publicity is bad publicity. Sure, I look bad and sure I look goofy, but removing any care or sense of, like, what I look like on video anymore is incredible because it works. So I look at some of the creative ideas where I'm running to a listing and I'm talking to McCall on the way there, and I'm swimming from under a dock into, the starting clip of a video. I'm jumping into a hot tub with a full suit on. There are just all sorts of ideas that come in the culture that has been built within the platform family. Another thing, don't even get me started on all of the value that's there just as an added benefit for you to be around other like-minded real estate agents that value their families and their business the same way that you do. That's game changer. That's hard to find. But it's being around people that have other creative ideas and being able to say, hey, do you mind if I, do something similar? And they're like, absolutely, all day long. It's not the scarcity type mindset that you often find in the real estate industry and really in any industry, ultimately, at the end of the day, that, value is scarce and, there's just not enough money out there. The people in the platform family have a long-term vision. So I hope I answered it, but ultimately it would be so God made a small business owner.
Yeah, and you hinted that you put a lot of effort into the creativity of your videos. I'm assuming you're talking specifically listing videos.
Listing videos.
Yeah.
Yeah,
How
absolutely.
many listing videos do you typically film in a given month, whether or not they're your listings or not?
Yeah. Yeah, I would say probably three to four. Once again, I kind of go back to being a little pickier and choosier on which ones I'm doing because of the ultimate long-term direction that I want Navigate North to go. So I'm doing them on almost every single listing, but on the higher end listings, pretty much anything above 450,000, I'm bringing in my professional photographer and videographer to do those. But the other ones get a basic cell phone video and they don't care. Honestly, sometimes those are the ones that do better than the other properties because they are more curated. But once again, it's just a different style of marketing. I want those ones to have a little higher end feel and look and attachment, but you still have to do the creative part. You still have to look goofy. You still have to not care. Even on high end listings,
Yep.
you still have to not care. Um, I've had a couple of $1 million listings where I've just kind of looked goofy and it hasn't mattered because they still
What
get
would
30, 40, 50,000 views.
what would be an example of that? You say, hey, I'm willing to look silly or I'm willing to look goofy on a video to kind of grab people's attention. What would be a specific example of a listing video where you did that?
Yeah. Yeah. Honestly, I can think of a couple properties in specific. One where I did, like, hey, these guys did all the things to check the boxes. I had somebody throwing me a cardboard box in one of the videos. That would have been perceived, by my old brokerage and by other people as like, what are you doing? That's $1 million listing. But you know what? The seller loved it. We talked about all the boxes that they checked in preparation for their listing. So when I say silly, I mean things that wouldn't necessarily be considered like, oh, this is the flashy, all the camera shakes and all the spins, and there's a time and a place for everything. But that's an example. Jumping in a hot tub with a suit on, that's an example. I filmed a video the other day starting a lawnmower and pretending to mow my client's lawn. That one's at 30,000 views. I could go on and on.
There was a video I actually remember because you had texted me about it when you were about to film the video where you wore a Minnesota Vikings jersey because
Oh
kind of
yeah.
the angle you took on it. It had something to do with, hey, this house is perfect for hosting a party for the big game or something like that, right?
Yep. We were right at the start of football season last year, and coincidentally, it was on Viking Street. What a loser street to live on. But yes, I wore a Vikings jersey and I punted a football over the house. And you know what? The old soccer Brandon could no longer punt it very well, so we ended up doing kind of like a blooper reel where the ref came up and said no good, and there's goalposts over top of the house, and that was a $420,000 listing. The seller loved it. The community loved it. I got questions about that all the time, and I talked about taking a poop on the John, just like the Vikings do every year in that video. Like just silly things where you you can talk about the house in a way without talking about the house.
Right.
Hey, here's the master bathroom. If the Vikings are taking a crap like you are here, stuff like that. It doesn't matter.
Well, yeah, like here's the thing. As a local real estate agent, let's not become so like, arrogant that we think we're somehow the equivalent of like a brain
The
surgeon.
second coming.
Yeah,
Yeah.
or like an investment banker handling a massive, IPO where there's billions of dollars at stake. It's like at the end of the day, we are residential real estate agents. Let's not convince ourselves we're more important or sophisticated than we are. People want to work with someone they could see themselves having fun with, right? If it makes you more approachable because you know what, that guy, cool, he has a sense of humor, he seems like he's approachable, right? That's going to affect your conversion ratio on your leads, because if people just think that Brandon seems like a fun guy, he has a sense of humor, he doesn't take himself too seriously, right? They are more likely to respond to your texts when you text them, or answer your phone calls if you call them, or if you email them. They're more likely to actually reply, right? They're more likely to message your page on Facebook if they feel like you are actually an approachable, cool guy, than if you're so important and you're always wearing a three-piece suit and all of your videos look like Hollywood productions, that people actually feel a little intimidated calling an agent like that, because they're like, oh, he probably won't even take my call, or he's probably just going to give me to some assistant. Like, you want to come across as approachable, and that's why these strategies work so well. I mean, you'll see platform agents all across the country, as an example, uh, jumping in a pool on a listing. If a house has a pool, we will tell you, wear your suit, wear your full fancy business clothes, and start the video by doing a cannonball into the pool, because it's so unexpected, right? That if you start a listing video that way, you have hooked people in and they will watch the rest of the video. Or jumped in a hot tub, or you punted a football over the house, or you had one recently, actually, that it was a house right up on the lake. Like, I don't know how it was built like this because of like the modern setbacks, but
Oh yeah.
like, it was a house built so close to the literal like waterfront of the lake that you cast a line out like fishing from like the upstairs
Yep.
bedroom, and the camera zoomed in and you're in the upstairs window, and I'm assuming they were filming from the dock or something. And
Drone video. Yeah.
oh, a drone. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, it was just like
Yep.
a
So we brought in a full team on that one, where like, yeah, we're 10 feet from the water. Okay, nobody's ever actually going to fish. If you've ever fished in a Minnesota lake, nobody's ever actually going to fish from their house.
right.
But you could.
Yeah, right.
But you could,
Right.
and it was about getting people's attention.
Well,
And I remember I
okay,
went and I got this big bobber too. Got this massive bobber, and I just posted a picture, and I had fun with it. I said, hey, heading out to film my newest video, and this is on my personal page. What do you think this, bobber is going to be used for? And I got all sorts of comments, nothing related to real estate, but it tied people in. And then when I shared the video, people watched.
yeah.
It's little things like that that connect them too.
Now, obviously, I'm the, founder, CEO of platform. And sometimes on these videos, I do have direct input. Sometimes Brandon has called me, or other clients will call me and they'll directly ask me, hey, do you have a video for this particular property? But on this video that you were just talking about, I had nothing to do with the idea or the launch or the editing of this listing video. I saw that pop up in my newsfeed like any other post would pop up on Facebook. I had no idea it was coming, and the video hooked me, and I was like, oh wow, this is actually a really creative video. And I ended up watching it, and yeah, it reeled me in, because I just thought it was genuinely
Yeah.
creative. And I don't even live in Minnesota anymore, right? I'm just on your retargeting list because I constantly click on your ad. So it's putting that extra little bit of creativity into every video that you
Yeah.
do gets you more views. So how many people live in the greater Brainerd Lakes area? Is it 50,000, 100,000?
I'd say 50 is a pretty solid number. When you're in northern Minnesota, we have a pretty broad range. I probably service about a 30-mile radius. But then in the summer, we probably swell to 4 times that. Honestly, I mean, we had 40,000 people in Nisswa for the parade just last week alone.
And what is the published population of Nisswa on like the town sign?
Published population? I think it's about like 8,000.
Yeah, I mean, it's a really small town. I know that.
Ho, 2,000. So that's where my office is in the what has been labeled as the best small town in Minnesota, albeit because people love to vacation here and be here, but in the city limits, 2,000
So there's
people.
2,000 people in Nisswa, and there was 40,000 people who showed up for the Nisswa parade. That kind of gives you an idea of how much the population in that area swells in the summertime. The reason I asked that, Brandon, is that clearly this is a small town. So when you say that you're getting 40,000 or even sometimes 50,000 views on your videos, I mean, that means like every single adult in the community is seeing your content. Just mathematically, that has to be true, right?
Yeah.
And so it's
Yep.
it's not surprising that your business has grown as much as it has when you have that level of like brand saturation in your like hyper local community.
Yeah. I mean, you and I sat down here a while back and we were talking about various ad ideas and things, and we came up with the postcard idea. I don't know if you remember that. It took me forever to implement because I've been so busy with all my real estate things. But 1.5 something million people impressions is what I received in 2023 on my Facebook ads. 1.5 million. That's insane when you're talking the size of town that we are. That means people are seeing my ads. I don't even know. Do the math on that one. What is that? 30 times on
Yeah,
average.
yeah,
Let's say there's
yep,
50,000 people. That's 30 times per year
yep.
that people are seeing my stuff. That's insane. And if we know that real estate is a numbers game and it takes on average, you'll talk to most industry professionals, on average about 8 touches before you can get a conversion. I'm set up for success now and in the
It's
future.
it's actually more than 30 times because you're assuming in that calculation that everyone is over the age of 18, and obviously they're not.
Yeah,
So that's actually
exactly.
it's even more because usually in any average American town, half the population is under 18, and obviously we're not targeting people under 18 with ads. So like whatever level of saturation you think you had, you can basically double it, and that's actually the amount of
Yeah,
adults that are watching your stuff, which is pretty cool. Um, so all these videos are creating this brand saturation.
yeah.
You're getting these phone calls. Um, do you want to pull up that email I just sent you with all the recent wins and just rattle off some of those bullet points of like, hey, what has happened in Brandon's business? Because we've kind of been talking about big picture narrative of
Yeah.
work life balance and all this. What are some of like the concrete specific wins you've had just in the last month or two?
Man, I mean, yeah, this email really puts it into perspective because we talk about like lag measure and lead measure stuff. This is like active. These are the things that just on the listing side that I'm working right now. I think I have 4 or 5 listings under contract, just listings. I just locked down one for 725 grand here a couple of weeks ago. Just locked a buyer down last week for 680. This is on the buy side. I had 2 more listings I signed last week. I have 6 more listings to go live. This is like signed listings under the withheld status, waiting to hit the market. So that means that I've been working with some of these people for 2.5, 3 months, knowing that I'm their agent. I've been signed under contract with them, and we're just waiting on the timeline. I have a calendar over in my office here where I can just look. Hey, I've got all these listings coming on. Again, unheard of for the most part in the real estate industry, unless you're a longtime seasoned vet and you're like talking to your friends out at the local cigar club, like, oh, we're gonna list our house and so and so. Maybe you're lucky enough where that agent's on top of his game and they actually have it on a calendar. 6 listings still coming on by the end of July. I have 7 active listings. I have $120,000 in GCI that's pending between some of those properties. And then I have another 10-acre property that I just listed yesterday on Lake Edward, which is the same lake that I just sold one for 725. I mean, I could go on and on. And then the most recent one, which is of course what everybody's trying to do, elevate their average price point. I met with a $1.6 million listing. And I think I have the listing, so fingers crossed. We're in the middle of July here as we film this, but I'll keep you in the loop on that one. So it's just insane. I can look at this and be like, I know that my business is there. I'm not scrounging every single month looking for where's my next check coming from. And you know what else it does? It allows me to be a better service to my clients because I'm not scrapping for every next check. And I don't care who you talk to, any agent that does not have their business well enough set up where they have consistent flow like this is probably not doing the best things possible for their clients because, man, they don't know where their next check is coming from. That's a scary place to be.
Right.
I've
Right.
been there. I can't say any exact examples where I've done a big disservice to a client, but I know it happens because I see it time and time again. Agents hop into this industry and they hop out because they cannot generate
Well,
consistent
one
business.
one one very concrete example of that is that when you don't have any business and you'll do anything to get a client because you just need to get a commission check, right? If a seller owns a house and let's say it's a $600,000 house and all of your research and all the comps mean like, hey, this house should be listed at 600,000, but the seller's like, can you get me 700 for it? Like a newbie agent who's desperate for business will say, yeah, sure, we can list it for 700. And you're just wasting your time and the homeowner's time, and you're actually hurting your long-term reputation by taking listings and overpricing them by $100,000 because that'll all show up in your stats too, that your days on market as an agent is higher than obviously the rest of the agents in your association. And it hurts your reputation with other agents because they will then tell their friends and family and clients that, hey, like you don't really want to work with that guy or that girl because they take overpriced listings all the time and they're not willing to tell the seller, right, what they need to hear. They're telling sellers what they want to hear. And no one wins in that situation. But if you have enough business to where you can look forward a week, you can look forward a month, you can look forward 3 months, and you can already actually kind of plan out, here's how much money I'm going to approximately make in the next 90 days because of all the business I
Yeah.
have closing. You
Yep.
have much more emotional leverage in those conversations to say, hey, hey, Mrs. Seller, uh, here's the deal. Your house is worth 600,000. You can list it for $700,000 if you want, but it won't be with me. It'll be some other agent. Your house is ultimately going to sell for $600,000. So I would only be wasting your time and my time if we list this house at $700,000. So if you want to list with me and get all the marketing and the branding and the exposure that I provide, I'd be happy to list at 600. But I'm just not going to do it if I know that it's listed $100,000 more than what it'll ultimately sell for.
Yeah.
And you have the courage in that situation to actually tell the truth, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Having powerful marketing affects your business in many ways beyond just uh bringing in leads. So you have all this
Yep.
business coming up, Brandon. It's kind of like um it's in the pipeline. uh what percentage of your business would you say is listings versus buyers right now compared to what that ratio used to be?
Yeah. Listings versus buyers, I'd probably say closer to 65, 35, 65 list, 35 buy. I now have set up the systems and processes to be able to give and grow at the same time, that go giver type mentality of like, just I'm passing out leads consistently to my agent, where he can close because now I helped change and transform his life. So now I'm looking at it at a much different perspective because I know that I can only serve so many people in the Brainerd Lakes area. I want to impact agents and I want to impact other people into the industry because we have to raise the bar for the level of service that we've provided because things will be changing. And that's okay. Change is good. Change is scary for a lot of people, but change is good. It leaves opportunity. And right now, there's a lot of opportunity to impact agents specifically. So I'm really excited about the upcoming years for that. But yeah, around that 65-35, where it used to be, was probably 40-60, probably 40% listing, 60% buy side. I was getting drug around. I literally could not balance all of those things. I don't know how some people do as much as they do.
That right there, what you just said, probably explains just in one sentence why you have so much better work life balance now. Is that when your marketing is better and you elevate your marketing, right, it just inherently results in you working with more listings rather than buyers, because buyers don't necessarily worry or care about your epic listing marketing and how great your listing videos are and all that. Like, it might bring in some buyers from time to time because obviously it positions you as the local expert, but listing marketing just by definition is more geared towards potential listings like sellers. And so the more creative marketing you do, the more your business over time should shift into working with more listings and buyers. And so if your business has grown and the ratio of that business is now a majority listings versus buyers, that explains why you feel like you have so much more free time and you can actually spend, nights and weekends with your family because you're not driving buyers around the 30-mile radius that your market is, you know. I mean, I know it's a cliche, but they always say like listings are leverage, right? So
Yep.
that's what happens when you focus on marketing is you will get more listings uh, as a percentage of your business. Speaking of
Yeah.
percentages, here's my final question I want to end with to kind of tie a bow on all this. We talked about this a little bit before the show, I think before we hit record, but a question that a lot of people ask us, or a question even that an agent might ask platform, even after they've signed up with the platform marketing program, is like, okay, if I stick with this for a year or more and I really like do platform the right way, like I'm not half-assing it, I'm actually committed to like doing what my account manager tells me to do and I follow the platform recipe, you know, what percentage of my business is this actually going to account for? Like what at the end of the day, if I look back at all the transaction I did, like how much will platform affect my business? Because I asked you, hey, Brandon, looking back at the transactions that you've done this year and what you anticipate you'll do towards the end of the year, how many of those people do you think were in one way or another influenced by all these platform marketing campaigns? Whether they saw a video on YouTube, they saw one of the videos on Facebook, they saw one of the photo retargeting ads. And what was the percentage that you estimated of all the business you're doing now that you can actually, in one way or another, directly or indirectly,
Hmm.
trace
Yep.
back to platform?
Yeah. That's a stellar question. Um, I would say now it's around 50%. About one out of every two people I can consistently or directly tie to platform in some way or another. But here's the thing is it's not just those. It's the ones that you don't see. It's the ones who like you knew them, you knew of them, they knew of you, they knew you kind of, but now they see your marketing consistently where they're like, no, that person is they are a kick ass agent, like it's those ones that you can't always quantify that could have slipped through the cracks.
Right.
And honestly, prior to platform did slip through the cracks for me because I saw over and over people that I'm like, they knew I was an agent, right? Did they? And you start to second guess yourself.
Right.
Now I have people coming to me that like they just know I'm an agent. They see me around town. It's honestly tough sometimes. I kind of go out at times with a disguise. If I just want to be like hidden, it is hard to go somewhere without having a conversation. And I know that sounds bad. As much of an extrovert as I am, I have a social battery too. And sometimes I just want to go and hang out with my family and not talk real estate. That's almost impossible to do these days, but that is what it is. We live a lifestyle business. People want to talk about real estate because it is so foundational to being an American and being in the Brainerd Lakes area. You want to own a home. I own a home with acreage. I live in the Brainerd Lakes area where I could live on a lake, but we chose to go the acreage route. They're not making any more dirt and they're not making any more lakeshore, but it is so foundational. People want to talk about it and step into that in like full confidence and know that like when people are talking to you, take that as a huge sign of respect because they don't just naturally come up and talk to people
Right.
about real estate. You'll hear it out at restaurants. You're like, oh, your real estate radar goes off and you're like, oh, I heard them talking about real estate. And they're not going to approach you until they know you. And I think that's like a really big differentiator. And by the time they approach me out in public, it's kind of awkward because I have to play the catch up game. They've been seeing me for years now, seeing my marketing, and I'm like, who are you? And they
Right.
say their name. You're
Right.
like,
Right.
boom, light bulb goes off. I remember your name. You've been liking and commenting and sharing all of my stuff for forever. Thank you. You get an opportunity to thank them for all the things that they've been doing essentially without knowing it for you. That's wild. But long story short, I'd say about 50%, which is pretty wild. Took a little while, and that's okay because I knew it was going to work. I've seen it work over and over and over and over and over and over again for 7 years. Where I'm like, gosh, I'm kicking myself. Just kicking myself. I didn't jump sooner, but
But now you can look at your business again and you can say, hey, at least 50% of the transactions I'm doing, I can like directly track back to, hey, that lead saw
yeah,
one of my platform ads or videos or something. And
yep,
to to kind of dive into a really like granular example here, like a very specific situation. Like often we have people who grow their business a lot and they're not even aware of how much fuzzy ROI is happening, because maybe it's like, hey, I got a listing whatever last week and it was a $500,000 listing, but that guy goes to my church and
Yeah.
I've known him for 10 years or 5 years, whatever. It's like, okay, well, if he's listing his house with you, did he buy that house with you?
Yep. Yep.
Are all of the transactions of people that go to your church working with you? Because
Yep.
that's not really an excuse for saying, oh, the marketing's not working because the person goes to my church or the person
Yep.
goes to my kid's school or I know them through the Chamber of Commerce. Because unless you're the literal only agent they know, or you currently have 100.
Which is statistically like impossible
Correct.
for someone
Correct.
to only know one agent.
Correct.
Like it's just not possible.
Right. And, unless you can look me in the eye and tell me, hey, before I ever signed up for platform, I had 100% market share of my church or 100% market
Yep.
share amongst realtors at my kid's school or whatever. It's like, you have to look at, hey, some people probably already knew you, but it took you putting out interesting marketing content and them following you on social media and consuming the photos and videos over whatever, 6 months or a year, to where, hey, even though they technically knew you before, that's what warmed them up so much to where they finally reached out and then hired you and not some other agent to sell their house. I mean, you're actually a great example. We kind of joke about it now, but it's like we knew each other for 5 years before you ever joined platform.
Yep.
And finally, after
Yeah.
we've been friends for 5 years, you're like, all right, I'm finally going to sign up for this platform
All
thing.
right. All right.
And now your business has, basically on pace to have more than doubled, even though we're in a down market. And again, you were already successful in your area. You already were one of the best agents, but there was that many more people out there who probably already knew who you were. They had heard the name Brandon Hedlund, or they knew someone who knew you,
Mm-hmm.
right? There was like
Yep.
a degree of separation where maybe they didn't personally know you, but they knew someone who knew you. That doing all this marketing is what warmed up all those people enough to where now your GCI isn't 200 or 250. It's going to be closer to 400 plus
Yep.
over the next year. And, beyond, that's going to grow, right? That's going to grow.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Wild. Absolutely wild. It's been a game changer, life changer. I mean, biggest piece of advice I can tell people is quit lying to yourself about the size of the pool that you're working and go out and realize that there's a heck of a lot more business to be had if you remove your pride in yourself from the things that you're telling other people.
Brandon,
Goes a long way.
I'm excited for you. I'm happy for you and your family. I know you have
Appreciate it, man.
obviously a super cool wife. You have 3 kids. And when we get to help out someone like you, someone like your family, and see that business grow, I know that that extra income, you're going to do really cool things with it, and you deserve it because you work hard. So thank you for trusting platform with your marketing. Thank you for always listening to our crazy ideas when we give you these video scripts or ad ideas. You are always one of the people who's like, yeah, I'm going to try that. That's awesome.
Yep.
And you're an action taker, and ultimately action takers get results. So guys, thank you for joining us on this episode of the Platform Marketing Show. I hope there was something in here that you could take of practical value, because this has been valuable for me, seeing Brandon's business grow. And honestly, I can't wait to see where you're at in a year or two, man, because I bet your business is going to keep growing from where it's at today. So we'll see you on the next episode of the Platform Marketing Show. Brandon, thank you for your time today.
You got it. See you guys.